Hey guys, welcome back to the Guitar Institute. This week is going to be a ton of fun. We are going to go over delay and reverb pedals and just talk through a bunch of settings on the Strymon timeline and the Strymon Big Sky. Now, if you don't own those pedals, it's totally okay. These topics that we're going to talk about today can be universally applied to all delay and all reverb, because I want to talk about the mindset of crafting sounds from delay and from reverb, and how to sort of think like a mix engineer instead of like a guitar player. So we're going to talk about the bigger picture and play through a bunch of sounds and how that fits into a band setting. So we're going to go up close into this great program called Nixie, which is a great program to edit and arrange your Strymon presets. But in that program, I can tweak knobs and I can show you exactly what I'm doing to craft my delays and my reverbs. We all love delay and reverb, so this is going to be a ton of fun, just getting to hear lots of cool sounds, getting to hear our guitars come alive in a new and modern way. These pedals are stacked with tons of cool presets and lots of different ways to use them. The problem is that they can be overwhelming, for one thing, and two, they don't often get put in the mix in the way that we think they are. A lot of times we're in our own head about the way that our guitar sounds, either in our in-ears or in our bedroom when we're practicing, and the delay and the reverb, the way it's swirling around in our own mix or in our bedroom, can be so amazing. It can be so like inspiring, but inside of a mix, it's different. There's a lot more going on. So I want to talk especially about that as we start crafting different patches. And I'm going to talk about my go-to settings for like any given live set, what I kind of jump to, and how I arrange those presets. So here we go. We're going to jump over to this program in Nixie. Let's get started. All right, here we are inside of the Nixie program. You can download this on Strymon's website if you are a Strymon player. If not, it doesn't matter. We're just going to talk about the delay and the reverb and how they interact together. First off, let's start with rhythm tone. So far we've talked about how to dial in your rhythm tone with a drive pedal. We've talked about how to dial in your amp. And how do you add on wet effects, and to what degree should you do that, especially with rhythm tone? Can really make or break your rhythm tone. It can add a ton or it can be terrible. So let's start off with just delay, and then we'll go over to some reverb for rhythm tone. With the timeline, I like this D-tape setting, but basically that just means that I'm using a darker setting with my delay. Let's turn up the delay right now just to dial in the tone of the delay. So I like this darker setting more than the brighter setting. What I'm after when I'm dialing in my rhythm tone delay is just a presence. Like I'm looking for an overall more smoothness to my delay and to my tone in general. So I don't want necessarily for you to be able to hear as a listener that I'm using delay. And so because of that, I'm using a darker tone. And I'm going to use a pretty short repeat. I'm not going to use a lot of depth on the modulation and stuff. That would be modulation. Grit, I think, is like basically dirt to your delay. Sounds basically like a flange or something. So we're not going to use that too much right now. The thing about rhythm tone is that per the chord progression that you're playing, you don't want the repeats to be repeating past too many chords. So I dial in my repeats based on the song. So For instance, if I'm playing a song, let's say it goes... just droning on the D chord, then it's not going to matter how much repeats I'm using too much, because those repeats aren't going to be delaying into another chord. Those delays can go forever, and it doesn't really muddy up my signal because I'm not switching chords yet. But if I start switching chords, it can get real messy, especially if the mix is a little louder. Listen to that repeat. It's got all kinds of chords in it, right? So you want your repeats to be not lasting too much past the next chord that you're playing. That's a good setting right there, because it's basically repeating 1 to 2 times and just giving my signal an overall presence. Mix, you dial up to taste. For rhythm tone, you don't really want a whole lot of mix because you don't want your delays to be heard. It's more just a presence thing. A lot of times guitarists aren't thinking about what's actually happening when they turn the knobs in the mix. If I turn a knob past 12 o'clock, that means I want the repeat to be heard. I want it to be part of the notes that I'm playing. So it's just really dependent on the part that you're playing. Is it a part that requires a syncopation that is done with a delay pedal, or is it a part that just needs more presence? Then you would bring it back down over here. For my live setup, I keep 2 presets in my timeline. I keep a dotted or a quarter note setting over here with a low mix and pretty low repeats, and then I keep a dotted eighth setting with a higher mix. A higher mix over here and a little bit of a higher repeat. The reason for that is because the way that I use dotted eighth is usually to be heard. It's something like I'm playing an edge type part, or something where when I play that note, I want it to be repeating and to be heard. You hear when I'm playing, you can the delay is actually part of my part, right? It wouldn't be the same if I put the mix down over here. Again, I'm dialing down the repeats per the part I'm playing. So most of the time with dotted eighth, I'm playing leads, or I'm doing single note stuff. So I don't want a whole lot of repeat because it ends up blurring up the actual clarity of what I'm playing, or the idea behind what I'm playing. I don't want this to be muddying up whatever I'm going to be playing in the future. Depth, speed, grit, those can all be changed to taste based on what you're trying to accomplish. You can add more of those if you like more modulation to your setting. It's not a bad thing. I mean, that can sometimes be a really cool presence to your sound. Other settings that I use inside of the timeline, I use the reverse. And I like to do that with, Johnny Buckland from Coldplay. He'll do stuff with reverse, like play a line. And it has like this cool repeat behind it. If you, the Strawberry Swing, I think it's on Viva La Vida record, Strawberry Swing, listen to that song, you can hear that, what I'm talking about. It's got a lot nice reverse behind it. Another cool thing to do with reverse is to go all the way heavy with your mix, and then you just get the reverse. And that combined with reverb can be a really cool ambient sort of texture. That's pretty much all I use inside of the timeline, reverse and D-tape. I sometimes have used a pattern delay. It kind of gets a ping pong thing. I've written parts with that before. There's lots of different patterns that you can choose from, but it's trickier to dial in, and you have to make sure your front of house guy has both amps, or if you're running stereo, both amps exactly the same in the mix, left and right, hard pan. So you're really leaving yourself hanging if he's mixing you a different way. So I try and play my delay pedal as if he's only using one amp, and so I don't do a lot of ping-ponging, because I never know what he has to do per the sound of the room. I never know what the mix engineer is going to do per the record. You know, I record a guitar part in stereo, but he might make it mono later. So I don't usually record with a pattern that's ping-ponging back and forth between each amp because of that, because I don't know what it's going to end up like in the final product, and I need to make sure that whatever my idea is, I have the most control over the way it's going to sound as possible. So a lot of what I've been harping over the last month and a half is about control, right? It's about controlling your sound and your own destiny in the end final product, and that has to do with that, using pattern delays. So for leads, you know, I talked about we do dotted eighth. I have quarter note delay going. I also sometimes use slapback delays, which is actually acts more like a reverb. It's really cool for soloing. Kind of like a 70s vibe, right? Pretty cool sound. That's just by turning up the mix, turning down the repeats, and making a really fast delay pattern. You can hear it sounds a lot like reverb. That's the way I'm using it. I'm just using it as a reverb pedal, basically. I do faster delays, like eighth note delays sometimes too, but it's not real common. Again, my go-to settings are just a dotted quarter, or a dotted quarter note delay with a low mix and low repeats, and then dotted eighth with a higher mix and low repeats. So getting those repeats as loud as the actual dry signal or louder is really key to making sure your dotted eighth tone is really cool. Let's look at the Big Sky. So with the Big Sky, I have 3 presets to choose from, and then lots of banks. Again, I'm going to talk about this pedal like you don't own this pedal. So I want to talk about reverb as it stands, just in general. With reverb pedals, I'm trying to create a nice natural presence to my tone without a whole lot of candy. I don't want it to be messing with my dry signal. I want it to be adding to it. So you can see all these crazy names for different types of reverbs, and you can get really carried away with how you use a reverb pedal and what you're going after, and it can be really fun. But as a standard go-to settings, I have the plate setting for my rhythm tone, then a more of a plate setting for my lead tone, and even more of a plate setting for like my swells and lots of ambient stuff. So I like the plate just because it's got this really natural, nice setting to it. Let me just show you what it sounds like, and you can match your reverb to where I have it on here. So rhythm tone, I have not a lot of mix, not a lot of decay. Again, I'm just trying to add like some presence to my tone. Keeping that decay short so it's not blending my notes together. Really nice setting for rhythm. I keep the pre-delay all the way down. Pre-delay basically is the timing of the delay, so with it all the way down, it means that as soon as I play a note, it's starting to reverberate. If I have it up here, it's waiting until a certain amount of milliseconds before the actually reverb kicks in. It can be really annoying if you don't know what that does. So I like pre-delay all the way down. Tone, just dial it in to ear, to taste of my ear. That's bright, this is dark. I don't want it to be cutting too much of my tone, again, because it's going to carry some of the presence, so I keep it on the brighter side, but not too much. Let's hear some modulation. I would just dial that in where you hear it best. I don't think too hard about modulation. I just kind of get it in a setting where I think it's making it better, not making it worse. And what I'm not trying to do is create a new and exciting sound with modulation. I'm just trying to enhance my overall tones. So if I was really trying to go for a modulated crazy chorus sound, I would end up using a chorus pedal or a flanger or something that actually does that. So preset B is going to be heavier decay, heavier mix, a little bit brighter tone. So it can be really cool for like crazy leads. Great for single note stuff. I even use this setting for high chimey chords, big rakes. Just depends on the song, obviously, but big stuff. Can be great. Then preset C, even heavier mix, heavier decay. Here's B, here's C. And this is great for, the Sigur Rós type thing. Or just pinging out single notes. So I find a lot of diversity within just this one setting, just this plate setting. Now, a lot of pedals these days have all these other settings that create these overtones, and they can be really cool, but they can also do stuff that you don't want them to do. So I just tell people to be aware of the notes that are being added when you play. So if you're going to jump over to something that's adding overtones, adding shimmer, adding that rainbow effect, analyze what notes are being added. Sometimes it's fifths and like weird intervals that are outside of maybe the chord that you're playing or the key signature even sometimes. So it can get a little crazy. What we're hearing just right now, just in your headphones or from your phone or from your computer watching this video, it might sound all fine and dandy, but once you get into the mix, you have to remember that the most prevalent thing being heard or that should be heard is the actual notes on your guitar. And then what pedals are adding to that need to be complementing that, not distracting from that. So reverb can be a big thing that ends up distracting from the original thought that you're trying to portray on the guitar, which is a lead line, a melody, a chord, whatever it might be. This can cloud that thought. So being aware of that, asking your mix guy, hey, am I clear? Am I present? Am I is what I'm trying to do coming across in the way that I think it is? Because in a mix, we can't ever tell because we have our guitar so loud in our own monitor mix or we're in our own bedroom that we don't know what it's ending up doing. Being aware of the EQ that the pedal's adding to your overall sound. Is it making you brighter? Is it making you darker? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Is the decay, this is your nemesis right here on both the delay pedal and the reverb pedal. Your repeats, your decay is going to make or break your overall tone because this is going to end up blurring past the point of the chord change or the note change, and is that a good thing? So being aware of that in the mix is incredibly important. All right, guys, that's it for the reverb and the delay pedal. For right now, we're going to get into this later in the year, but I wanted to give an overview of what I do. What we just covered is everything that I go to in a normal set. In a normal recording, I hardly change outside of those settings that I just showed you. Then we're going to eventually, later in the year, we're going to talk about stuff where we push the limits and we come up with new sounds and how that can fit into a recording. That's going to be a ton of fun too. So thanks for watching. We'll see you here next week.